In this fourth essay on preemptive mirror framing, we look at the damage done. When truth is distorted on purpose, the damage isn't confined to a single argument. It ripples outward into trust, relationships, and even the collective sense of what is real. Preemptive mirror framing doesn't just win short-term rhetorical battles, it corrodes the foundation of communication itself. Once it takes hold, the aftermath can be measured in fractured relationships, disillusioned followers, and a public more cynical than informed. The erosion of trust. Trust is the social glue of any healthy system, personal, professional, or political. It allows people to exchange ideas without perpetual suspicion. Preemptive mirror framing tears at that fabric by teaching observers that anyone could be hiding a deception behind their moral outrage. When audiences witness preemptive accusers later revealed as the true offenders, they don't just lose faith in that individual, they begin to question the reliability of everyone. This cynicism becomes contagious. The assumption quietly forms that everyone is spinning, everyone is lying, and no one is accountable. Research in communication ethics shows that once trust erodes, people compensate with defensiveness, isolation, or apathy. The outcome is a culture that mistakes skepticism for wisdom and disengagement for discernment. Psychological fallout, confusion, and cognitive fatigue. Targets of preemptive mirror framing often describe the experience as disorienting. They enter a conversation believing they are clarifying truth and exit questioning their own memory. This effect parallels the gaslighting loop, the repeated manipulation of perception that makes people doubt what they know to be real. Observers, too, suffer. When every accusation seems reversible and every defense sounds suspect, cognitive fatigue sets in. Psychologists call this information overload, a condition in which people disengage not because they don't care, but because they can't tell what's credible. Over time, confusion becomes a defense mechanism, and apathy replaces awareness. Damage to discourse and institutions. Preemptive mirror framing doesn't just mislead individuals. It warps institutions that depend on transparency and accountability. In politics, it undermines democratic debate by transforming opponents into existential threats. In media, it feeds the illusion of two equal sides, even when one side is fabricating claims. In workplaces, it transforms collaborative environments into arenas of suspicion. Janus warned that groupthink thrives where dissent is stigmatized. Preemptive accusers create precisely that environment. Loyalty replaces scrutiny, and staying on message becomes more important than staying truthful. Moral injury and disillusionment. For followers who eventually realize they've been manipulated, the emotional aftermath can resemble moral injury, a deep sense of betrayal by someone once trusted. Studies in organizational psychology suggest that such betrayal damages not only confidence in leadership, but also self-esteem and worldview coherence. Disillusioned loyalists often experience shame, confusion, and grief. Some withdraw entirely from civic or communal life. Others redirect their anger outward, creating cycles of new suspicion and vengeance. Either way, the tactic leaves psychological wreckage far beyond its initial target. Cultural consequences, the normalization of manipulation. When tactics like preemptive mirror framing become normalized, society begins to equate persuasion with deceit. Strategic dishonesty turns from an exception into a norm, a tool of winning. This normalization is what Ellul described as the habituation of propaganda, when manipulation becomes so routine that people stop noticing it. The line between communication and control dissolves. In this environment, truth becomes transactional, valued only when it serves the right side. The idea of shared reality, essential for problem solving and progress, collapses under the weight of performative conviction. The interpersonal cost. Preemptive mirror framing also plays out in micro contexts, marriages, families, friendships, teams. When someone accuses another of selfishness, dishonesty, or disloyalty, only to display those traits themselves, it generates relational whiplash. Targets often describe feeling unseen, unheard, and emotionally cornered. The result is relational trauma, not only the pain of being falsely accused, but the secondary wound of being blamed for another's actions. Healing requires rebuilding internal trust before external trust can even begin. Ethical implications. From an ethical standpoint, preemptive mirror framing violates the most basic communication duty: honesty and intention. It turns discourse into theater and morality into camouflage. According to Walton, ethical communication requires both truthfulness and fairness, the willingness to let others respond under equal conditions. Preemptive accusers deny both. Ethical dialogue thrives on vulnerability and reciprocity. Manipulative framing thrives on dominance and control. The two cannot coexist. Reclaiming integrity in communication. Repairing the damage begins with naming the pattern. Awareness interrupts the spell. It allows individuals, organizations, and audiences to slow down the emotional reflex and re-examine evidence before allegiance. In practice, this means valuing transparency over theatrics, rewarding integrity over loyalty, practicing critical empathy, listening without surrendering discernment. Festinger's work on cognitive dissonance reminds us that change begins when discomfort becomes conscious. The same is true for truth recovery. Only when the discomfort of deception outweighs the comfort of denial can integrity return to the conversation. So in conclusion, the slow poison of distorted truth. Preemptive mirror framing is not a debate tactic. It's a cultural contagion. Its true damage lies not just in who it deceives, but in what it destroys: the belief that truth can still matter. Healing from its effects requires more than outrage. It requires the slow, steady work of restoring trust through honesty, accountability, and courage. Communication, at its best, is not a weapon, it's a bridge. And that bridge cannot stand if its foundations are built on mirrored lies.